I call the member for Crumman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, on the 26th of October 2024, Queenslanders voted for change. They voted for a fresh start. They voted for safety in their homes. They voted for safety in their businesses. They voted for safety at their local shopping centres. And they voted overwhelmingly for safety in their communities. At the outset, Mr Speaker, I want to acknowledge all of the brave victims of crime who stood up and told their story in the hope for change, in the hope for stronger laws, Mr Speaker, in the hope that no one else will have to suffer through what they have suffered through, Mr Speaker. These laws are for all those victims, Mr Speaker, because after a decade of the former Labor government who weakened our youth justice law and eroded the rights of victims, our strong laws in this bill have never been more vital, Deputy Speaker, to people like Russell Field, Capalba's newest LNP Member of Parliament, whose tragic loss at the hands of a youth criminal, sadly, we all know too well, to Natalie Merlahan, who was also hit by the youth criminal who killed Matthew, Kate and baby Miles, and who desperately tried to save the Field family while suffering her own injuries, to Cindy McAuliffe and Victor White, whose tragic loss of their mum and wife Eileen White we also know sadly too well, to Michelle Little and Bed Beaumont, whose 15-year-old son, Angus Beaumont, was stabbed to death by two teenagers with violent criminal histories, to Lee Lovell and his daughters, whose wife and mum, Emma Lovell, was brutally killed by youth, to Chris Sanders, who was assaulted, stabbed and left lying in his own blood by youth offenders in a shopping centre, to Leanne Barsby, who was the victim of a violent and armed home invasion where a 14-year-old punched her in the chest and head, leaving her with seizures, to Ben Cannon, alongside Lindy Atkinson, Trudy Reading, Helen Duck, George Atkinson, who galvanised as voice for victims to support victims of crime across Queensland, and to all the brave victims of crime, I want you to know the Christopher government has heard you. We see your pain. We see your advocacy, and we will give you the laws you have called for and the support you need. Adult crime, adult time will be law before Christmas. We, on this side of the House, are delivering consequences for action. Adult time, adult crime means youth offenders who commit the most serious offences like murder, manslaughter, grievous bodily harm, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, robbery and burglaries and serious assault will be liable to the same maximum, minimum and mandatory penalties as adults who are convicted for the same serious violent offences. Adult crime, adult time will give the courts the laws they need to hand down consequences for action. Under the LNP's laws, Labor's generation of hardcore repeat youth offenders will no longer be untouchable, Mr Speaker. They will be held to account and victims will be safer. Deputy Speaker, these laws are the first step in our Christopher government's plan to make our community safer. It will deliver on our commitment to hold youth offenders to account and put the rights of victims before the rights of offenders. Our laws will require courts to have primary regard to the impact of the victim of crime. This will no longer just be one of the over a dozen factors that a judge weighs up in determining a youth offender's sentence or the appropriate sentence to hand down. It will mean that the impact of the crime on the victim will be primary when a judge is considering what is the appropriate sentence. Our laws will amend Section 150 of the Youth Justice Act to ensure victim participation in the youth justice system is valued and respected. Our laws will open the Children's Court to victims and their families and to the media. Our laws
Member
will
for
allow the court...
Member for Crumlin, sorry to interrupt you. Members, there's a little bit too much just general chit-chat in the chamber. Could you please just keep the noise down? Member for Crumlin, you have the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Our laws will allow the court to review the full criminal history of offenders, including a juvenile's record, for up to 5 years when sentencing. Our laws will make it easier for victims of crime to be kept updated about their case by changing to an opt-out system for victims to receive updates. And importantly, all of these were put to the people of Queensland before the election, and they overwhelmingly voted for these laws to be law by Christmas, Deputy Speaker, after a decade of the former Labor government systematically watering down our Youth Justice Act, of them refusing to listen to victims of crime. Our laws, this bill, has never been more important, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, there were 289,657 victims of crime in the last financial year that those opposite were in government. We know that is a record those opposite don't want to talk about. And we know that that is a 14% increase on the victims of crime in the previous financial year that those opposite were in government. Well, under a Crisafulli-led government, there will be less victims of crime. These laws, this bill, is just the first step in strengthening the rights of victims. This bill will establish, the plan for this bill is to help establish the Professional Victims Advocate Service, Deputy Speaker. It will be a one-stop shop for victims of crime to help them navigate the justice system and provide them with end-to-end support throughout the justice process. I am so proud to be part of a Crisafulli LNP government who is putting the rights of victims at the heart of our justice system, giving them the respect and the support they deserve. But how has the previous government, how has Labor treated victims of crime when they were in government? Well, from the former Labor member for Capalaba calling the youth crime crisis a media beat-up, to their former member for Thuringowa, the Labor member for Thuringowa, describing victims of crime in Townsville as a renter crowd. Well, Deputy Speaker, where are those members now? I'll tell you where they are. Their community overwhelming them rejected. And can I welcome the LNP member for Thuringowa, who gives a voice to victims and stands up for her community, and the LNP member for Capalaba, who is the reason these laws are here, what he has been through and what his family has been through, and the advocacy that he has done for these laws. He is a testament to the rights of victims and what victims need in the system. Deputy Speaker, one only has to look at some of the submissions to the Integrity, Justice and Community Safety Committee in Townsville to see how much those communities needed these laws. One witness, Jolene Joyce, told the committee, "I'm an Army veteran with over 13 years service. I am no longer in the Army, but I deployed both domestically on short notice to overseas operations in hostile and conflict environments. I can tell you with confidence that I am feeling more unsafe in my home at night than I ever did when deployed to riots in Solomon Islands. This is not fair and it is not right." Julian is right. It is not fair and it is not right. And it is a damning indictment on the former Labor government, and it is why these laws must be law by Christmas, Deputy Speaker. And not only are we determined to give Queenslanders the laws they need to keep our community safe, but our community safety plan also means we will intervene, we will rehabilitate, and we will provide gold standard early intervention to at-risk youth. Our Making Queensland Safer laws go hand in hand with our $485 million additional investments in early intervention and preventative initiatives, staying on track, circuit breaker sentencing, gold standard early intervention, 9 regional reset camps, $40 million for 2 new youth justice schools, $40 million for 4 crime prevention schools, Deputy Speaker. This is our comprehensive plan to deal with the youth crime crisis that those opposite started and continue to deny with their contributions to this debate. Deputy Speaker, the Making Queensland Safer plan that we took to the election, that Queenslanders overwhelmingly backed, that Queenslanders overwhelmingly called for, these are the laws that will keep our communities safe, and this is the first critical step to returning safety where you live in our Queensland communities.
I call the member for